Sometimes life feels like a long, winding road where we just can't see what's waiting around the next bend. We put one foot in front of the other, we do our best, we keep going. But deep down, in those quiet moments, we can't help but wonder, God, is there really a plan for me? Do you see where I am right now? Today, we're going to dive into a story that begins in a place where an entire nation was asking that very same question, long before we ever did. Jeremiah 29:11 is one of the most beloved and quoted verses in the entire Bible. We see it on coffee mugs, on wall art, in greeting cards. But behind that famous, comforting promise, there's a moment of profound pain, of deep confusion, and of long, weary waiting. God's people, the Israelites, had been taken away from their home. They were exiles, far from everything familiar, far from the life they had always known and loved. They weren't just sad, they were discouraged, their hope worn thin. Imagine for a moment having to pack up everything you know. Not because you chose to, but because life suddenly, violently, forced you to. You're in a strange land, surrounded by a strange culture, and the future feels like a blank, terrifying page. And it's right there, in that moment of despair, that a message arrives, a letter from the prophet Jeremiah. You can imagine the scene. People gather around, leaning in, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and fragile hope. They're desperate for good news. Maybe the letter will announce a quick rescue, a miraculous, fast turnaround. Perhaps God is about to swoop in and carry them back home. But that's not what the letter says. Jeremiah tells them something completely unexpected, something almost shocking. He says, build homes here, plant gardens and eat what you produce, get married and have families. And more than that, seek the peace and prosperity of the city you've been taken to. In other words, settle in. You're going to be here for a while, longer than you hoped. This news must have felt crushing, like a heavy weight settling on their already burdened shoulders. Everyone wanted an instant miracle, a quick fix, an escape from their current reality. But instead, God was asking them to settle, to put down roots, to grow, even in a place they never wanted to be. He was calling them to live fully, right in the middle of their trial. It was a call to find life not after the waiting, but during it. And then, after this difficult instruction, after this call to endure, comes the part of the letter that has echoed through centuries, the words we all know and cherish. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Think about the power of that. These words didn't come in a moment of triumph or celebration. They weren't delivered on a sunny day when everything was going right. They came in the middle of disappointment, during a long, hard season of waiting, surrounded by uncertainty. And maybe that's what makes this promise so incredibly powerful. It's a promise for the difficult, in-between places of life. We've all had seasons like this, haven't we? Maybe you're in one right now, a season where your dreams feel delayed, where the answer you've been praying for isn't coming yet, where you look around and realize you're not where you expected to be at this point in your life. It could be a job that feels like a dead end, a relationship that's struggling, or a personal goal that seems further away than ever. And in those moments, it's so easy to feel like God's plan has been derailed. But this story reminds us that sometimes God's plan doesn't show up as a fast escape from our problems. Sometimes it shows up as strength, right in the middle of a long season. It shows up as unexplainable peace while you wait for the storm to pass. It shows up as the courage to take small, faithful steps forward that don't look like much progress from the outside, but are actually building something beautiful and strong within you. Just like the people of Israel, we are reminded that God's plan is not always about rushing us out of hard places. It's about bringing us through them with purpose, shaping us along the way. Take a moment to think about your own life. The challenges you thought would surely break you, and yet, here you are. The moments that felt like permanent dead ends. But somehow, looking back, you can see how they opened up entirely new paths you never would have discovered otherwise. The seasons of waiting that felt endless, but produced a patience and resilience in you that you now rely on every day. Maybe the plan was never ruined. Maybe it was just being rewritten into something deeper, richer, and more meaningful than you could have imagined. God says, I know the plans I have for you. Notice he doesn't say, you should know the plans I have for you. He doesn't say, you should understand them all by now. He simply says, I know. He holds the blueprint. And for the child of God sometimes, that is more than enough. Our peace isn't found in knowing all the details, but in trusting the one who does. Jeremiah 29:11 isn't a promise of a life free from trouble or disappointment. It's a steadfast reminder that even in the unfamiliar chapters, the confusing detours, and the long hallways of waiting, God is not only present, but He is actively walking ahead of us, preparing the way. His plans are for our ultimate good, to bring us hope and a future filled with His presence. So if you find yourself waiting today, feeling unsure, or just a little bit lost in the fog of your circumstances, hold on to this promise. Cling to it. Your story isn't over. Your path hasn't been abandoned. God's timing is perfect, and the one who sees the entire journey from beginning to end is already preparing the very next step you need to take. God has not forgotten you, and He never ever will.